Welcome to the Filmcast review of Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. I'm going to read the plot summary from the internet. Lawman Big Nick O'Brien gets embroiled in the treacherous and unpredictable world of diamond thieves as he pursues career criminal Donnie Wilson to Europe. End quote. So obviously, we're going to start right off the bat and say we are going to discuss the premise of Den of Thieves 2 Pantera in this review. And also, the trailer gives away some pretty big plot points in the movie, and we are going to be discussing those plot points as well. So you should assume anything that is in any trailer of Den of Thieves 2 Pantera is fair game for the pre-spoiler section of this review. Let's get into it. Devindra Hardawar, we recently covered Den of Thieves Part 1 on the After Dark. We loved it. Loved the movie. And are excited about Den of Thieves Part 2. Can you share briefly your thoughts on Den of Thieves 1? And then really curious what you thought of Den of Thieves 2 Pantera.
I did watch Den of Thieves 1, which I also somehow missed, ahead of this review. I have to say, I'm pretty much right with there with you guys. Like, I think it is punching well above its weight, that movie. I think there are some shots, there's some the setup of the heist and everything I think are really well done. There are a lot of things in that movie that kind of hold it back, and I think if we get into spoilers, I think the final shootout of that movie on a logical level, on a moral level, on do you have basic intelligence as cops? Maybe don't have a shootout here, you idiots. Where these suspects, you could just wait. You have them trapped. I have a lot of issues with those aspects of the first movie, but yeah, overall better than I expected it to be. This movie is absolutely my shit. Den of Thieves 2 Pantera is such an upgrade, because clearly the budget is bigger. They can get outside of LA, so it just looks good. But this is a movie. So Den of Thieves 1, clearly a Heat ripoff, right? That is what they're going for. That's the vibe. This movie, in the very first few lines, is we are doing Ronin. They say Ronin 10, 20 times. I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing. Because yes, you are in Europe. And once this movie did that, it was oh, so we're doing this, huh? I want to see cars. I want to see nice cars on tiny little roads. I want to see fast cars going down those highways by the cliffs. That is what the movie basically pitched the beginning, because it said Ronin 10 times. Somebody's call name is Ronin. Yes, okay, I'm down. And the actual setup of this movie, group of criminals getting together, you have the home base, you're planning out a big heist, you don't know who to trust. It's Ronin. They're doing Ronin. I really appreciated that about this movie, but also just the clear level up, the fact that this movie even comments on the ridiculousness of making this movie now, because Gerard Butler does not look like Gerard Butler did in the pre-pandemic era. Gerard Butler has put on a few pounds, so this movie ostensibly begins the week after, the couple days after the end of the first movie.
I don't think that's true. I think it's supposed to have been a minute.
Yeah,
it's not that long. I don't know how. Maybe not that.
I don't think it's been a full 6 years, but I think it's been years. I think it's been years.
I don't know if it's been years. Is the thing, because the I don't know. Slight spoiler: the divorce had just gone through. It's still fresh in the minds of the bosses. It may I would say less than a year. It feels like months. Maybe it doesn't feel like
he literally says, "I look so much younger then."
Yes, and he says, "I look so much younger." And to me, that it just kind of felt oh yeah, because you made that movie 8 years ago, Gerard Butler. But anyway, the timing of it feels really close, because we also, at the end of the first movie, we get the setup of
that's the thing that is odd, is because at the end of the first movie, he does say, "Oh, I'm about to do a diamond heist."
It's not that long. It doesn't feel that long. So it feels very soon. Anyway, but the overall,
I would agree with you, Jeff. I think it's years, but
years seems too much. But whatever. This movie is just much better at constructing what it's attempting to do. I think the heists are fantastic, or at least the one major heist that they're building up. The cast of characters, the interplay between Big Nick and Donnie. Yeah, I think is a lot of fun. I think this movie is also kind of dumb on other levels too, of they should be asking more questions about this guy trying to join their gang. That's a whole thing. But no, I think it's really well done. Sort of like Ronin, it does not give you much action until towards the end, or makes you wait for a lot of it too. My one criticism is I would have could have had more. This movie is almost 2.5 hours long. I would have loved another set piece. I would have loved more car stuff, because they got really good. Like, this movie is basically doing what Fast and Furious used to do, and Fast and Furious has essentially given up on, because now they're like world-class super spies or whatever. This is like down and dirty, criminals on the ground, fast cars, tight roads, really well shot. There's like a chase sequence in this movie that is really, I think, exceptionally well shot and executed. And there's a point in this movie, guys, where Gerard Butler is hanging out the side of a Porsche with an assault rifle on like the tight roads by the cliffside. And it just like, this is cinema, guys. This is action cinema, because it is so well done. The choreography of it all. I freaking love this movie.
See, I think cinema is Gerard Butler eating a street donut in the first movie.
There's cinema. That. There is some of that here too in this movie, but this is like nobody expected. Why does this movie exist? The first movie was not that successful. It was not that memorable, but somehow the fates have allowed this thing to be created, and I think that's it's kind of a miracle. This movie.
Jeff Kanata, curious what your thoughts were on Den of Thieves 2 Pantera.
Well, Dave, I guess you could say my thoughts on Den of Thieves Pantera are best summed up in the form of a limerick.
Let's hear it.
The thieves are out of their den. A globe-trotting vacation. I was enticed for a clever new heist. Instead, we're bromancing these men.
Nicely done, Jeff. That was very good.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I basically disagree with every single thing Devindra said.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
This
Jeff.
is an early contender for my biggest disappointment of the year.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're just starting off the year completely wrong, Jeff. But
Yeah.
okay. Go ahead.
Here's what I will respect about this movie. I respect the idea that we're going to make a sequel that does nothing the same as the first movie. That is is a completely different film.
Mm-hmm.
I respect that. Usually what you're looking for from a sequel is, hey, I really liked what happened in that first one. I hope I get more of that. And this movie goes, nah, we're going to do something completely different.
Yeah.
I have lots to say in spoilers about this movie. It's hard to talk about it without spoilers, but I will say that I think what this movie is attempting to do pretty much fails on every level. And it's a bummer because I didn't see the last one until last week. And I immediately became very excited for the sequel because of how much fun I had with that first one. And almost everything that's fun about the first one is absent from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's cool that they're trying, this writer-director is trying to do something different with the sequel, but I don't think the different stuff is anywhere near as fun or satisfying. At the very least, what I wanted was another smart heist. And this movie gives you a heist, one, but I don't think it is interesting or clever. The first movie is so smart and is so ahead of the audience in so many fun ways. And it's so rug pulling and setting you up in fun ways and undermining those setups. And it's smart. It's clever. It's teasing me as a viewer and making me question, what I assumed. And it's doing so much fun stuff. This movie does none of that. The end kind of justifies some of the stuff we see, but like I saw the end coming a mile away. It didn't surprise me. The first movie is just like, whoa. And this movie, there's no whoa. I appreciate that Devindra dug the fast cars and stuff. And it felt like, what are we doing? I have lots to say in spoilers, but the short version is this was a massive disappointment for me.
I felt that, Jeff. I felt it. And I'm kind of in between you guys on this one. I think if you go into Den of Thieves 2 Pantera expecting more of Den of Thieves 1, you will be disappointed.
Sure.
A lot of the stuff from the first film is absent, right? Here are some of the things that are absent in the second film. First of all, the first film is gritty. Gritty is not a movie you would use to describe Den of Thieves 2 Pantera.
A word you would use.
It's quite the opposite. It's actually super glitzy and glossy, right? It's kind of like, hey, what if we were super cool wearing designer clothes in Europe instead, right? Like that's
Yeah.
what Den of Thieves 2 Pantera is. There is like a crew of guys who are doing the heist and a crew of guys who are trying to catch them in Den of Thieves Part 1. And that dynamic is gone as well. Like you kind of are, not only are there crew guys, you're like meeting these guys, you're like learning about them. None of that's happening really in the second film. And really the big thing that sucks about Den of Thieves 2 Pantera is the dynamic between Merriman and Big Nick was like such a core part of Den of Thieves 1. There, like Merriman is so formidable, Big Nick is so unstable. Like
Mhm.
these two forces coming together was really interesting. And the problem when you end your movie, part 1, with a huge twist that actually this side character was the main character the whole time.
They kind of usual suspected it.
Yeah,
at
is
the
Yes,
end.
100%.
is
Yeah.
that when
they
you
did.
make the
Yeah.
sequel, now that guy is the main character, and he's not as good as Merriman is the problem.
That's
Um,
dude, I agree on 100%.
Mhm.
And the craziest thing about that is that what happens in this sequel would be actually really compelling with Merriman. Because what's happening is in the first movie is you've got this Heat style De Niro
Yeah.
Pacino, we're on opposite sides of the line, but we're more similar than we are different, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we are in direct opposition with one another, but there's a certain like recognition of if my life had gone slightly different in either direction, I would be you,
Right. Yeah.
And so you've established that. You have a whole movie that establishes that. And then the sequel is, wow, what if those guys actually became friends? Except it's not those guys. It's one of those guys and Kaiser Soze. It's like Kaiser Soze isn't going to be the dude you're going to bro out with. It's Kaiser
Right.
Soze's whole job is to wear a mask and not reveal anything about himself and be an enigma wrapped in a mystery that could disappear like the devil,
Yeah.
and which is what happens in the first movie. And then the second movie, it's like, oh, but he's also a dude you'd love to have a beer with. It's like, what? No.
Yeah, this is the problem when you make like a side character into the main character. Is it's sometimes it makes the side character less interesting, right? Like after Den of Thieves 1, you can imagine all kinds of stuff about Donnie, right?
Right.
Oh,
right.
Maybe there's all this stuff about Donnie I didn't know about, and now
Yeah.
you don't have that.
None of them are this.
I will
Right.
say, having just watched Den of Thieves 1, I didn't feel like Donnie was that much of a side character. Is the thing. Like, I feel like you spent time with him. You spent a lot of time with Merriman. I kind of had a better sense of who Donnie was as a person than Merriman. As
But
much
it's all
as
a mask in the first movie. It's all a fake
I mean,
out.
yeah, that it's all kind of a mask, but also like it's kind of an intriguing twist. Like I like Pablo Schreiber a lot, but Merriman like is just sort of like he is the gruff leader. He is the guy kind of leading the way, and it didn't feel like I didn't get a sense of a personality other than I got to be the tough guy against this other tough guy. That's the thing. So I didn't miss him that much. Yeah.
All that said, I also think, by the way, that Den of Thieves 2 Pantera is shockingly incompetent at basic heist movie things, right?
Mhm.
Basic heist movie things of you have characters describing what the heist. Why do they want to do the heist? B, describe what the things of the heist that are going to happen are. C, build up anticipation for the heist. Extreme. Heists are like rom-coms. Like there's a formula to them, and this
Mhm.
movie doesn't do any of that very well. In my
It
opinion,
does some of it. It does sort of like it does set up like this is going to be really effing tough.
Yeah,
right.
I
And
guess,
the way
but-
you do it is,
but like it does it in such a, in my opinion, disjointed fashion.
sure.
I will say I watched this movie with my wife. I consider her to be an intelligent person, and literally when the heist began in this movie, we didn't realize that it was beginning.
Hmm.
And that's a problem. In my opinion, that's a problem with the movie. Whereas like in the first movie, it is extremely clear what's happening, right? Like you know, oh, this is the big day. By the way, I will say a point in this movie's favor. they did improve the title treatments and the text.
They look better.
Yeah,
It looks better than they just like typed it into
Yeah, then they typed it in and
at the end of
chose like a random off-the-shelf
Yeah.
font. Like it does look way better in this movie.
Yeah.
We should talk about some of this in spoilers because
Yeah,
I thought it was
If you
actually
go to the
kind of
movies
brilliant.
for great font choices
Yeah.
and placement, this is your
It's
movie.
it's no Fast Five. It's no Man on Fire. Oh, Man on Fire sometimes. Whew, those things change sizes, guys.
So there's a lot of things that are bad about the film, but I'll say two good things about the movie. First of all, it is beautiful. Like the movie is gorgeous cinematography. You're watching these European cities and they look incredible.
They understood the assignment. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna do Ronin, make it look pretty at
Right.
least. Yeah.
Ronin is a great comparison. Another great comparison, honestly, in my opinion, Ocean's 12.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
everyone
The
was like
worst
they wanted,
oceans.
They wanted
The best.
Some people think it's the best.
I like it a lot.
And people wanted, hey, give us a thing like the first one. And Steven Soderbergh said, no, I'm going to do something different.
He in fact said "F you," and then nobody liked that. So yeah.
This movie, like Ocean's 12, is a much more laid back hangout movie that happens in a European country. And
there is a drug sequence in this movie, you know, which
it's
didn't
a
expect
character study. It's a kind of, we're spending time with these characters. We're learning about them. We don't really even care about the heist that much. Like that's kind
Right.
of what
Yeah.
this movie is. And it's trying to do something very different. And I appreciate that about this movie, even though I don't know if it was entirely successful. So, okay.
Mhm.
Those are some thoughts about Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. We have a lot more to discuss. Let's get to spoilers starting right now. All right, Jeff Kanata, I think you have some thoughts.
Well, here's the problem. I never once believed Nick had gone to the dark side.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem with this movie is that the big
Yeah.
reveal is, oh, he didn't actually, he set them up. And anyone who pulled off what happened in the first movie would have thought that too.
Right. Right. Like, why did they
That's-
trust him in the first place? Like,
that
it
is the
makes
biggest problem.
absolutely no sense.
And I know you guys hate it when I do this, but I can fix this movie.
Oh boy. Okay.
I can fix. I mean, the first way to fix it is don't kill Merriman at the end of the
Right.
first movie and
That
have him
was
be
their
the
big-
guy.
Yeah,
That's
their
a
big
great
mistake.
fix.
Yeah.
But in absent of that, what needs to happen in this movie is they need Big Nick.
Yeah.
And Donnie
yeah.
needs to have some brilliant way to get him to turn to the dark side.
Right.
It has to be Donnie's idea, and he has to
Yeah.
contrive all these
Right.
things, these brilliant things to get Big Nick to realize what he really wants is money. And then at the end of the movie, the twist is Big Nick was playing them the
Yeah.
whole time.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
That's the brilliant way this movie feels satisfying and awesome. But it's so crazy the way this movie plays out, which is I, like you, David, thought it had been at least years since
Yeah.
this has happened. And no one ever thought to go interview the prostitute. Like she just
This is
literally,
why I'm saying it feels too recent. Like the things that actually
but
happen.
the idea that
Yeah.
she just gives him the information he needs is
Mhm.
so easy and so lazy, I think, from a screenwriting perspective. But then, so he finds Donnie and just walks up to him and goes, I want in on this job.
And he's like, okay.
And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, you know what we'll do? We'll make you do drugs and that'll prove you're not a cop. I'm like, what?
I agree that they could have done more. Rather than it could be Donnie setting something up, but also having Nick appear to do something so terrible
Yes.
that his only choice was
And
to basically go bad, and maybe
way you
eventually
do
that could be
that
revealed.
is
Yeah,
You've got this guy, this French cop we get introduced to,
Yeah.
who has a beautiful family. Big Nick needs to shoot him.
Yeah.
We see him shoot a guy in the heist. That guy goes down and then he goes over and looks at his vest. No. Donnie needs to shoot a guy we care about, who we know is good.
Yeah.
That guy needs to go down
You
and
mean
we
Big
need
Nick.
to
Big
we-
Nick.
Big Nick.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
Big Nick. Big Nick needs to shoot that guy. We need to not know that guy is not dead.
yes,
And then at the end, reveal that he was wearing a vest the whole time,
you
and he's
need
fine.
more of the reveal. I agree. I totally agree with you guys. I think that is the weakest element of this movie because these guys should not be trusting Big
No!
Nick. Not at
It
all.
makes no
Not with
sense that
anything.
they.
It turns out the cop was a cop all along.
Right.
You know,
And
that's
the other thing in the movie,
not quite.
Well, but the
Not
other
quite.
thing that the movie
Yeah.
doesn't do well is establish why they need him in the crew.
Right.
There's no need for
This is
him.
what I'm saying. Is like the extremely basic heist things.
Yes.
So they could have easily written literally a line.
Well,
That,
they
like,
did. They did
hey,
actually.
we lost our this guy in the motorcycle heist. We need
Right.
another guy.
So they did say eventually that the guy who has to be security has to be law enforcement.
Right,
That's
but
the thing.
why
and
is
that wasn't
like
part
an
of the plan
after
initially.
That's after
yeah,
he's
it's an
already in the
afterthought.
crew.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well-
and then also another thing they did a poor job of is explaining what the plan was with the gigantic diamond, right? Like, so they get kidnapped by the I don't know if they're
The mob?
technically
It's
mafia.
the mob.
It's the mob,
Let's call them
yeah.
the mob, right? And then they say, hey, you got to get this gigantic stone back for us. And it's like, okay, so what even was the original plan, right? The original plan was to use the stone to get inside the
No, they
safe
sold the
deposit
stone.
box.
It's in the safe. But
They stole the stone, then they're going to use the stone to get inside the safe deposit boxes.
yeah.
And then I guess the only change to the plan is now they're also going to steal the original stone, but they weren't going to do that original. You know, like no one. The thing is, I think it was Christopher Nolan that once said, a heist movie is the only movie type where having long scenes of exposition is okay. Basically,
Yeah.
and it's like
Required even.
Christian Gudegast did not get the memo. He seems to be like, no, we're not doing any of that shit. All that stuff's going to happen off screen, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, that's one of the pleasures of a heist movie is
Yes.
Yeah.
seeing someone literally just describe what's supposed to happen.
And it's so
then-
good in the first movie.
Yes.
He does it. He knocks it out of the park in the
Yes.
first movie.
And he's
I
like,
do
I don't
thi-
want to do that anymore. I'm not interested in that
I
anymore.
kind of feel like the thing about the first movie, though, it feels so. It is formulaic in a way. Like it is well done.
But
It
it's
is well done.
That's
And I
what we're
think
looking
here,
for.
I think with this one is more like, well, I don't listen. I've proven I can follow
Right.
the template. Let me color outside the lines a little bit here. And the thing with the mafia, which is it's a bit of a hat on a hat because it's a double heist, and he's not
Yes.
telling the rest of the crew that, oh, by the way, the mafia is also targeting me because I stole their giant
But he was
diamond.
just going to leave the stone there? Was that the original
Well,
plan?
maybe they would have. I think now there is like, you
Right.
better get that back to us or you die.
Right.
So I actually kind of liked how there is this C plot involving the entire mafia that's out there, and a lot of the stuff it is not super explained very much. You get the mob boss going, capturing them. They have to swim back. The whole exchange after the car chase is just like, it's not realistic, but it's also like, well, listen, this was the agreement. Get us our stone back.
How did they
will.
know they were going to crash right there?
We all know what happens
Yeah.
when you steal a 20, however many, like $100 million stone from the mafia. A, they're not mad as long as you give it back. And B,
They let you go.
if you show up with the stone that you stole,
Yeah.
and also tens of millions of dollars of other stuff, they just let you go. Like that's
Yes,
They just-
right.
they
that
just
is
let you
the
go.
MO.
I think
Yeah.
that is actually explained by the ultimate, the final thing, where the boss is just like, you know what? I'm not mad. I'm in fact very impressed that you both
Yeah.
managed to steal this from my plane and also managed to steal it back from the diamond exchange. Like that is like, you don't just shoot talent like that on the road. You know, like
Just shoot talent.
you got his mind is working. He's like, oh, this guy's a heist cooker. Somebody cooked here. I need this guy on my team to do future heists. Think of what else could happen. So a lot of stuff is not fully explained, but I actually kind of think like that. It just kind of worked for me because it's like, yes, he's part of that team now. He is more useful to them as somebody who's going to go steal more shit and make them more money rather than be dead because of,
Explain to
stole
me,
from him.
you have this rip-roaring car chase through this winding
Yes.
road, and they happen to crash right there, and those guys just happen to be waiting at that exact place.
We don't know. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
they were following them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's movie contrivance, whatever. I love that chase though. I fucking love that chase because it's like the movie is doing the thing. It's calling out Ronan. It's showing me these cars. I'm like, you better put those cars to good use. The movie did not fully do the Ronin thing where we're getting high-speed chases in really tight European cities. Like actually within the streets, we get maybe a little bit of that at night. It lets loose on the highway, but it's well shot. The choreography of it all, like the spin around, the shooting, like as a chase sequence, I thought it was pretty thrilling and pretty well done. So
Yeah.
I agree, guys. Like, the director of this movie did not follow the formula that he did with the original. I think some things were maybe better done with the original. I give a lot of credit for like being like, okay, I know how to do this format now. Maybe he had a pitch for like a European heist movie. It was like, I can just reorient this back to my Den of Thieves franchise. I appreciate it where it does things differently, and yeah, like ultimately it was really successful to me. That's all.
We have to see Big Nick seduced by the dark side.
We do.
And
We do.
The only thing that I see in this movie is him seducing the dark side.
Right.
Yeah.
I see him working the case the whole time. And at no point did I ever for a moment think he was actually a bad guy.
Well, okay, a couple things. First of all, I want to get to that point, Jeff, but I actually really like the heist in this movie.
The
I
heist
thought,
is really
I thought the
good.
setup was dog shit. Really
Yeah.
poorly done. No build up at all. It just begins all of a sudden. There's no like anticipation.
I like that because they suit up and they're just like on the other roof, and then like extendable pole.
Yeah, I mean
that was
Listen,
cool.
I
Extendable
wanted
pole
to
is
clap.
cool.
I
That
wanted
is
to clap.
That
He
is very
jumped,
cool.
extended, ran up. Like, well done. I have not seen that before. In a
I
heist
like
movie.
the kind of Metal Gear Solid.
Yes.
We gotta go through without the camera looking at us kind of thing. I like.
But, like-
I really
Yeah.
thought the heist was well done personally, but
Mhm.
Jeff
I
sounds like you weren't.
disagree.
Yeah.
There were cool elements to it. I thought the
Yeah.
poll was cool.
Yeah.
But it's just so easy that she just knows when the things are not there's no
They
like
hacked into the
Yeah,
system,
they
whatever.
hacked
but
in.
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
bloop,
yeah,
blop, bloop, now we can do it. There's no like the first movie is you got to get a job at the Chinese food restaurant. You know, like it's so
Right.
much cooler. It's so
Yeah.
much more instant. It has more texture. And this one
Yeah.
is like beep bop boop. Now I can do it. It's just
Yeah.
like it's,
Yeah.
it's
It
not-
feels
I
like an
gotcha.
upgrade. Like here's the
Okay.
thing: this movie has a lot less homophobia than the first movie. I think that there's some quite good upgrades because there's some regressive shit just going on in the first movie. Because like, am I watching an action movie from the '90s now, where it's just all like gay panic jokes? I don't know. We don't get as much of that here. I think like some things have changed, and I think ultimately for the better. But yeah, the bigger budget, you know, it's not as gritty as the first one. Sure.
I mean, the way this movie is similar to the first movie is both movies open with an out of context heist that's very quick.
Yes, I love it.
A lot of
Yeah.
setup, one big heist at the end, and then a kind of last twist.
Mhm.
Now, that is what a Den of Thieves movie is, I think.
Sure.
But Jeff, let's get to your point. Now, there was a post that Danish Syed shared with me by Severin Cox on Twitter that really I've been thinking about this whole time. And Severin Cox writes, the first Den of Thieves is largely riffing on Heat/LA Takedown. It comes down to the inevitability of men who give into their most toxic selves because they simply know no other way or the alternative is too scary. What I love about Den of Thieves 2 is it's all about what if they didn't have to. You see this in the tapestry of the film itself, the uniquely American grime and ugliness of the first movie steadily giving way to the liminal beauty of European cinema, and the characters themselves change. Ambitions and desires are complicated or evolve. It's fascinating that a lot of fans of the first movie don't know what to make of 2, because it's so not more of that. And the choice to distance itself formally and aesthetically, even rhythmically, is rooted in the evolution of its characters, themes, and ideas, end quote. So,
I like that.
it's basically, what if we didn't need to do things the old way? What
Which
if
is
we
in fact
didn't?
a common complaint we have for sequels.
What
you
Again,
if we
that
didn't
is
need
my
to
biggest-
do things the way that we did them before? And
Yes,
and
yes.
that is not only what this movie is on a meta level, it's also the characters. When they're playing M83's outro as Big Nick is driving into the, I guess, Sardinian countryside, wherever the hell he is at that
He's
point.
like, I don't want to go back
Um,
to LA.
and
I
it's
am
like-
much happier here.
And he's like, you know what? I'm leaving it all behind. The way my past ways of thinking about things. I'm now I'm kind of buddies with Donnie, and I engineered or helped to engineer him and all of his coworkers getting set free. We didn't film those because we didn't have enough money, but you know, and I can leave it all behind. I don't need to be bound by what came before. Anyway, there's something kind of beautiful about that. And even though I don't think the movie was very good, I appreciated that it's kind of trying to do that. You know?
It's reaching. It's reaching in ways, and the first one was reaching in many ways too. They couldn't quite, fully achieve. And I don't know, the MA3 stuff worked for me. I like the overall crew. I really like Evan Ahmad, who plays the sort of like the one woman in this team who's kind of helping to put it all together. But she was really like interesting as a character and really beguiling too. So there's stuff like, it doesn't all connect together. There's logical leaps in all these types of movies. The heist clicked for me. The action worked for me. I get a decent sense of the characters. Like the buddy bro stuff doesn't always work between Donnie and Big Nick, but like when they sit down and have like a bit of a heart to heart, like it does give me that sense of like, oh yeah, we know the same streets. We kind of know the same roads, and like you went down this path and I went down this path, and there's maybe an agreed upon middle path. I like Merriman in the first movie. It's just like I was not as impressed with that character. Like he felt very much like I am bad guy in a Shield episode. You know, I have this team. I listened to what you guys were saying, and like that very much felt like I really like the Shield. I really like Heat. Let's smash those together. And this one feels like, yeah, he really also likes European, heist movies, and that is a thing I can just vibe with. That's all. So I appreciate how different it was, even if like logically things don't fully connect.
You know,
Jeff,
guys,
I want to hear your reaction. Go ahead.
if I was going to betray an entire group of super criminals, I would not sit idly by as they were driven off to prison so that they could see exactly who orchestrated their downfall.
I think
he
felt
just
like
as a precaution.
He felt like he owed it to them, Jeff. He felt like it's like, well, at the very least,
look him in the face.
I'm gonna look you in the face. But Jeff,
people
what was
get out of prison with I don't know, revenge on their mind. Too easy for. I'm gonna be like, hey, keep the cuffs on. Put me in a car too. Let's just complete the facade until everybody is nicely packed away in prison.
My wife was really bothered by the fact that Gerard Butler says, hey, sit in the back left, right? Mm-hmm. And you think to yourself, and it means he's part of the effort to free him.
Yeah.
Right.
And you think, oh, that's going to come into play later. But then the helicopters land, and the guy comes
say
in
the same thing.
And then he says, hey, get back. And it's like, well, then what was the point of having him say that? Like, why not just literally cut that line out? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Wait, cut that line out from what? From Gerard Butler or the
or
the guy?
Or no, from the other guy, because you want that information to be crucial. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's reinforcing. It's reinforced. It's so you don't forget the context. You know, it's basically a repetition of the things.
It just happened like 30 seconds ago. You know,
it was really. Yeah. I wish we could just like Donnie's inner monologue. Did he mean back left from when you're looking at the back? Or did he mean back left when you're looking forward? I go, oh, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're. Anyway, it's kind of like that's a very basic like thing of give the audience the satisfaction of realizing that's what's going on, and the movie doesn't do that stuff.
I agree. Anyway, that would have been tighter.
But Jeff, what was your reaction to the defense of what this movie's trying to do? I'm curious. Did you?
I think what I started out with my review was the thing that I give this movie credit for is not being a carbon copy of the first movie, not just being a sequel that's, hey, let's do that again. I totally respect any filmmaker that says, hey, I'm going to continue this franchise, but I'm going to evolve the franchise. I'm going to take it in new directions. Totally respect that. High fives. I'm down for that. I just want it to be done well. And I don't think this movie did it well. I think, again, there's a few pretty simple fixes that make this a much more satisfying experience and give you, yes, an evolution of what this franchise might mean, but also the same kinds of satisfactions where I don't feel like I'm ahead of this movie the entire. I felt like I was ahead of this movie the whole time. I was like, why aren't these idiots realizing that he is going to screw them over? Mm-hmm. You know, I honestly, at no point did I think he was not working a case.
Yes.
I will also say, I think I was more disappointed when he finally revealed that he was still like working on the case with them, because clearly his life would be better off if he just went to the dark side. Like he has nothing left at home. He's not a good husband. We don't know how he was as a dad, but his daughter seemed to miss him. So maybe there's that. But you know, he was not a good guy. He kind of screwed everybody over. And here in Europe, he gets to have his own, like, what's the movie where you just like rediscover yourself while you're traveling? He has his moment.
Bildungsroman, I think is what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
But I think the movies in general do a poor job of explaining Gerard Butler's motivations. Like,
sure.
Both movies. I think if we had gotten a better sense, why is Gerard Butler a cop? Remember in Heat, Al Pacino has his whole long speech to his girlfriend, ? At the time, where he's saying how like this is the only thing I can do, and I'm good at it, and you know all this, and he gives us all. And Gerard Butler never has that moment.
We see a photo of him that with Donnie in this movie.
Yeah.
Right.
In the first movie, we see a photo with him with the chief, like getting an award or something. What was the distance between looking like a good cop and being a total dirtbag?
Right.
And for
Yeah.
the first movie, I feel like his only excuse is like, listen, I'm really doing Pacino in Heat, okay? Have you seen Heat? Do you understand what Pacino was doing? I'm doing that. And I'm not going to give you more actual backstory beyond that.
All right. Well, at the end of the day, folks, despite all the issues we have with it, it is really impressive that Christian Gudegast made a movie.
How
And-
did this movie get made?
Yeah. And in
Why
particular,
does
this
it
one,
exist?
it's impressive. It's impressive.
It's impressive. Yeah.
So, anyway,
And
hopefully
it sounds
they'll-
like they want to make a third one.
yeah, it sounds like they
Sure.
want to make a third one, and it will also be very different.
I would guess, yeah.
Sure. Yeah, what
So-
what 90s movie will they try to like echo with the
Yeah.
third? Because that is the format of the franchise. Like pick a 90s thing, just have a jazz riff on it. Will it be The Rock? Will it be Con Air?
I think it's going to be Galaxy Quest, actually. So that's going to be a good one. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.